Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to Fannin's Flashbacks, the podcast that nobody asked for, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. This podcast is going to cover tales from IWA Mid-South during my 12 years with the company, and it will be a part of the VNMVS Podcast Network. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only due to the foul language and graphic details about deathmatch wrestling that it will contain. This will be your backstage pass to get a peek behind the curtain at what led to the downfall of the craziest independent wrestling promotion of the late 1990s, early 2000s. And without any further ado, Nick Manawa, hit the music. Greetings, wrestling fans, and welcome to episode 14 of Fannin's Flashbacks. It's the podcast nobody asked for, but I decided to give it to you anyway. These are tales from IWA Mid-South during my time with the company from 1997 to 2009. I am joined today by the one man who was on Team Ed Schumann in War Games that I feared. He's a former IWA Mid-South Deathmatch champion, not King of the Deathmatch tournament champion, but the short-lived title belt that was a standalone championship that existed. But he was also the 2005 IWA Deep South King of the Death Matches, Tank. How the hell are you, man?
What's up, brother? Long time no see. It's been a long, probably, 15, 16 years since we've been together on a show or to shoot the shit.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little while there where we stayed in contact on Facebook a little, and we would text about college football.
Oh, yeah.
But then, I shut down my social medias and went into hibernation and just went cold turkey away from all things wrestling there for
I know they're at the end of
years. So,
I know at the end of your social media run, and you were, I guess, working for the Cubs and posting all kinds of cool shit. And I was like, man, I'm jealous. You got to do some cool shit.
Yeah, I spent 5 years with the Cubs. Left the year before the World Series when I got a full-time job finally to try to support me and the wife. And, so a lot of my friends have World Series rings. I missed it by a year. Seems to be the story of my life. I seem to miss all the good stuff by a year or two. My high school football team, they went to the state championship the year before I got to high school, and they went to the state championship game the year after I got out of high school. The Cubs win a year after I'm gone. Just everything misses by a year. So.
Oh yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah,
that's life, man. That's my life too.
A day late and a dollar short.
Yes.
But normally I start off these podcasts by just letting the guests talk about what got them to become a wrestling fan in the first place. Since everybody's got probably a similar story, but their own differences. Was Baby Tank a wrestling fan, or did you get into it later on?
Man, this will show how old that I am. In 1980, my dad, he watched wrestling every Saturday. It was Georgia Championship Wrestling and Ghoulish Wrestling out of Chattanooga. And I hated this shit. I was just like, I just can't get into it. And one night, it was Mr. Wrestling 2 was wrestling somebody. I was just happened to be sitting there watching it. I think the Braves were coming on after wrestling. And the Masked Superstar beat him up and took his mask off. And the show ended right there. So I was like, oh, that was kind of interesting. So I watched it the next week. And then the next week. And then I started watching Ghoulish with my dad. And then they were like, tonight is a Memorial Auditorium. Bobby Eaton versus Gypsy Joe. And I was like, can we go? And he goes, sure. And I was hooked. It was in 1980. I was 9, turning 10 years old. And been hooked ever since.
Well, we got hooked at the same time then, because I've said on this podcast before, 1980 is the first memories that I have of watching Georgia Championship Wrestling on TBS with my dad, and watching those shows. And it's very fitting that you bring up the Masked Superstar as to what gets you into being a wrestling fan, because I bring the Masked Superstar up later on. We'll get to him later in the podcast as we're going through some stories. But I was a huge fan of Masked Superstar. Tommy Rich was my guy on Georgia Championship Wrestling. He was the one that I hooked for. Austin Idol. Just this past summer, after Mitch had gone into the Hall of Fame with Roland for GCW and their Deathmatch Hall of Fame, after I came back from going out there to be with him for that, I spent like all summer watching old Georgia Championship Wrestling on YouTube that I could find, and watched most of 81, 82, 83, that time period. There wasn't as much 1980 that I could find, but that was the time frame that I remembered. I didn't get to watch the wrestling out of Chattanooga up here in Chicago. That wasn't advertised. So was that part of the NWA, the Chattanooga group, or were they outlaws?
It was. Jarrett, Goulas, and Welch. They owned like the whole Tennessee Southeastern Territory. And George Goulas or Nick Goulas had Chattanooga. Jarrett had Memphis. Actually, Goulas had Chattanooga, Birmingham, and like some of the little Mississippi towns. So they would just run that loop every week. But then there was a lot of talent switching between Memphis and Chattanooga. So one week we would have Dutch Mantel and Jerry Lawler, and then like the next week we might have Bill Dundee come in or something. But my dad, he worked swing shifts, so the Saturday nights that he was able to take me, we went because the tickets were like $3.
Wow.
And and I saw some really kick-ass matches when I was growing up with the Goulas wrestling. And then when they shut down, Georgia took over their spot, and I got to see just so many badass matches. Like, I mean, the Buzz Sawyer Tommy Rich feud that went on forever. I saw that. I saw quite a few matches of that. The Freebirds. I saw the Freebirds against Ted DiBiase and Junkyard Dog, or Ted DiBiase and Kevin Von Erich. They would just bring in different people.
And that was when the Freebirds had done what was it, like 3 pile drivers on the floor to Ted DiBiase and did that. That was great stuff.
And he wrestled, with a neck brace. And I was just like, oh my God, how's he going to do this? And then they would take the neck brace off and just work his neck. And I was just, as a fucking kid, mad as shit, fuck you, Terry Gordy. And then coming to find out, me and Terry Gordy became really good friends later on in life. And that was always really cool. And oh yeah, dude, and then when that kind of shut down, Continental took over. That was Ron Fuller, or Robert. It was run by the Fullers, and that's where I, was introduced to like Exotic Adrian Street and Wildcat Wendell Cooley, Hustler Rip Rogers, and then of course the NW. I was more of a Crockett fan than I was WWF because that's what we got down here.
Absolutely, that was same here. And Continental, I was actually semi-familiar with because they would be covered pretty well in the after mags.
Yes,
and I would always read in any chance I got. So I can remember the Continental, and didn't like Eddie Gilbert make a run through there at one point, and I remember those.
They did an angle where Eddie Gilbert beat up Pez Watley's son, who was like 13 or 14 years old at the time. And I was like, oh my God, we got to go, watch this match. And Pistol Pez and Eddie Gilbert had their match. And like so many guys came through Continental, like the Midnight Rockers, which was the Rockers, Janetti and Michael, the Nightmares, Danny Davis and Ken Wayne, and just all the dudes I grew up watching because they came here all the time. But I still loved Crockett, And in like '85, they finally brought a Jim Crockett Promotions show to Ingle Stadium, which was the Chattanooga Lookouts, which is our AA baseball teams. They did a little show at the baseball stadium. And, finally getting to see Nikita Koloff in person. I was
Mm.
like, man, this is the biggest dude I've ever seen in my life. And then a few months later, saw the Road Warriors in person. I'm like, these dudes are even fucking bigger.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Crockett's was just amazing stuff. Loved watching that. And even after I had fallen out of love with wrestling and gotten out and distanced myself, my buddies, we still ended up going to a couple of the NWA Legend Fests
Mm.
that got put on in like Charlotte and Georgia. Um, and and finally got to like meet all those guys. And I remember I had found, I forget what it was like a sort of like a gag T-shirt company. I think it might have been Threadless, might have been the
Mm.
name of it. And my wife had found me. Um, they called it the Communist Party, and it was
Yeah.
like this red T-shirt, and it had like Stalin and Marx and uh, like a couple of the big Russian leaders on it. But they were like wearing lampshades, and it was like a party.
Yeah.
And so I wore that to the convention when I met Ivan and Nikita,
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and Nikita just absolutely loved that shirt when I took the picture with him and had that on. Yeah,
Yeah, the only Legends Fest I went to, it was the day Roddy Piper died.
wow.
And
Okay,
I was sitting, actually, me and some buddies of mine were sitting there talking to Greg Valentine, just because I'd done some shows with Greg, and he kind of vaguely remembered me. And then word came around that Roddy Piper had died. You talk about somebody who was, I mean, Valentine was like tore up because that was his guy. I mean, those two made magic together for years at Crockett, the dog collar
right.
match. And the whole feud leading up to the dog collar match was just, if you can find a lot of those matches on YouTube. But going back to Mr. Wrestling 2 and Mass Superstar about a week ago, I actually found that angle on YouTube, and
Wow.
I
Okay.
and I and I if I can find it again, I will send it to you so you can watch it.
Please do. I want to see that.
It was, man, it was just so cool, and I was like, man, this Mass Superstar is an asshole, But then coming later and when I finally got to meet Bill Eadie and tell him he's the reason why I became a professional wrestler or started liking professional wrestling, just the look in his eyes, it was like, and then got to tell Miss Wrestling too. Also, I did a show with him. I was like, "You're the reason why I started watching wrestling." And he goes, "Well, I'm sorry." He was just like one of the boys, But like I said, that Crockett wrestling. But then like the WWF would come to Chattanooga every now and then. But man, I was just all about Crockett just because I always thought the Fed was more. It was always more cartoony,
Right.
And then WW or WCW or NWA would run the house shows in Chattanooga. I mean, they'd be beating the piss out of each other. I mean, watching Ricky Morton bleeding from his head to his damn boots, selling. That's what Ricky Morton
Right.
did. He sold
Yep.
and
Yeah,
just
that was, yeah, I was always the much bigger fan of, Bill Watts, UWF, the Crockett's, world class. I'd watch anything I could anytime that I saw that they were on. And like, if WWF came on, it was like, well, if I'm not doing anything else with my life, then I would turn that on. And it just never could never get into that.
yeah.
And hated that they would just go in and raid all the territories that I liked and pretty much run them all out of business. And
I mean,
then
at the
it
time when they got Piper and Orndorff, I mean, that just killed Crockett. At the time, it killed Crockett and Georgia because Orndorff at the time was the top dog in Georgia, and then he's just gone. I don't know what the hell. Then I see him on WWF, and as just being a fan, well, I didn't know the damn politics of it. Vince was buying out all the territory or raiding all the territories to start his national expansion. So fuck you, Vince. You fucked up my childhood.
exactly, and I've always, everybody's like, oh, anybody that's in the business, their goal is to get to WWF or, WWE now. But I mean, that was never anything that I would, not that I ever would have had a chance, but, if the only reason I would have ever have gone there would have been just to punch him in the face. It'd be like,
Yeah.
you killed what I loved, you fucking piece of shit, and
Oh yeah.
and do it that way. But yeah, it was not a thing. I mean, I had the LJN action figures. Don't get me wrong, and stuff like that. But yeah, it was way down the list for me. I even liked the AWA better, almost all the way up to the end than
Yeah, I didn't
I
really.
did Vince.
We started getting AWA when it was on ESPN. I forgot, it was maybe '86, like Scott Hall, Kurt Hennig were a tag
Yeah,
team.
yeah, somewhere around the yep.
But I always loved Nick Bockwinkel just because he was the flashy, kind of flashy. He could wrestle, but then goddamn it, if he wanted to fight, he'd fucking fight too.
Right.
And then when I started finding out, like the earlier years, like him and Ray Stevens were like one of the best tag teams of all time. And that footage is really hard to find.
Yeah.
Anything Ray Stevens is hard to find. And I was lucky to see him wrestle in Chattanooga a few times when he came through Georgia. I saw him wrestle Tommy Rich at the auditorium and double juice. And I was just like, oh, this is the best shit ever. you know,
Yeah.
because Tommy Rich would bleed.
Oh, yes, he would. Yes, he
And
would.
that damn blonde hair would be red. And people
And
here just,
and once I got to be around him in the IWA locker room, it was even worse. Like when I was in the front row at IWA as a fan watching, and he'd be bleeding everywhere, and you could just smell the alcohol.
oh, yeah.
He would have drank so much you could just smell the alcohol coming out of his blood as he's like walking past you, a bloody mess. You're like, man,
I
that
had I had one like negative run in with Tommy Rich. Guess I'd been wrestling 7, 8 years and did a show. Me and my tag team partner wrestled him and this other guy, and they both showed up drunk. And Tommy was being a real prick. So after the match, my partner knocked out his partner, like shoot, knocked him out. So we're like, well, I guess this match is over. So we got in the back, and Tommy came back here running that lip. I'm like, motherfucker, if I wanted to beat up a drunk, I'd just go down the road to the fucking first bar. I was like, you ain't shit to me. He was trying to big league us and all, and I was like, man, fuck off. But I was at a show one night where he was walking around, was wearing a t-shirt, knee pads, and boots, nothing else, fucking dick flopping around. And one of the other workers was like, hey, my wife, she was his valet. Could you put some pants on? And Tommy told him to fuck off, and his dude just beat the shit out of him. And so we're just sitting there, and Tommy's just laid out with his fucking dick flopping around. What's fucking going on?
But there was more than one occasion at an IWA show, like when we ran Kentucky, you would have to the athletic commission would make you play the national anthem before the show started,
Yeah.
and the Ian had put the American flag on the wall right above the entrance to the dressing room. So like it was right above the curtain that they would all walk out. And there was more than one occasion where Tommy would put his dick out through the curtain while everybody's standing watching the national anthem at the start of the show.
He's other than that one instance, every other time I've been around him, he was great.
Yeah, I told the story where they ribbed me when I met Tommy the first time in the locker room, and Ian knew that was my favorite wrestler when I first started watching, and he was like, "Go up there and tell him that." And so I went up and I was like, Mr. Rich, you were my favorite wrestler when I was 4 years old. I started watching wrestling. It was you, and he just started cussing me out. You calling me a fucking old man, you piece of shit. And I was like in tears. I was like,
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And then everybody just started busting out laughing at me. And I realized that they were ribbing me, but he would travel with Doug Gilbert, and
Yes.
and I could not stand Doug Gilbert. when I was in the front row as a fan, we would turn our chairs around when he came out, and we'd like read newspapers because the Kentucky school newspaper would tell you ways to like antagonize the opposing team
Yeah.
at the basketball games, and they'd be like, "Oh, turn your chair, turn around, yell who's that when the name's introduced, act like you're reading a paper and all this other stuff." So, me and my buddies that were coming from UK, we would do that stuff to Doug Gilbert and turn our chairs around and read the newspapers. And so like Doug hated me, I hated him, and then it like carried like Tommy, being buddies with Doug Gilbert, he after that rib, I don't know if he might not have really been. Everybody else might have been on the rib. He might not have been. He might have just like, you're the one that Doug doesn't like, so I don't like you, and I'm going to cuss you out. To this day I don't know that part, but
Another Tommy
I
story
can.
that I
Okay.
heard not too long ago. This guy was driving him around, and he told him they saw a fucking dog on the side of the road. So Tommy's like, "Hey, let's stop and pick this dog up." He goes, "Why?" He goes, "Just do it." So he takes his dog to the show, and goddamn rifled the dog off. He said that he was moving, and the dog couldn't go with him, and somebody paid him like $40 for this dog that he had just picked up on the side of the road. I was like,
Man.
"What the fuck?"
Well, hopefully the dog ended up going to somebody that was treating him nice, but
No shit.
you know. So at what point did you realize that wrestling was something that you wanted to do for a living?
Man, being from Chattanooga, there wasn't really a whole lot of like independent wrestling going around. We had this one guy who's still running named Paul Lee, the Nature Boy. He does like a fake Ric Flair gimmick. And I went to a couple of his shows, and I was like, I don't know about this. Because then they'll come to find out he would just take the trainees and just beat the dog shit out of them, and that was it. So me and some buddies of mine, there was 6 of us. We would get really intoxicated, go in the backyard, and do backyard wrestling, but we weren't doing like backyard deathmatch stuff like a lot of the guys were doing. We were actually teaching ourselves how to fucking work a little bit.
Okay.
And
And about what age were you when this was going on?
24.
Okay, 24. All right.
I started late. I had my first my first real match. I was 26 years old. But I broke in really late. Like the kids now are starting at like 15, 16 years old. It's
Right.
crazy. And we found a guy named Chet Blaylock. He owned a karate studio, but he had a ring in the back of the parking lot. So one of my buddies went and asked him if we could use it. And he goes, "Well, just don't get hurt." So then we started doing little shows for our friends. I was like 3 or 4 different characters, and we just change and put on these half-ass shitty matches that we thought were pretty good. And one of the local guys, Richie Dye, drove by and saw us. So he stopped and sat there and watched us for a little while. And he goes, honestly, you guys aren't half bad. You just need a little seasoning, a little more training. And then the next Sunday, he brought another guy, Rawhead Rex, who ended up being my tag team partner for a long time. And they got in the ring and they beat us up a little bit. And they go, "Well, come to TWA," which is right outside Chattanooga, Rossville, Georgia, on Tuesday, and we'll train a little bit. So every Tuesday for 6 weeks, I showed up and they just beat on me for a little while. And then they were like, "Okay, we think you're ready." And then I had my first match in Charleston, Tennessee in November of 96. And it was a part arcade, part laundromat shithole in Charleston in front of about 40 people and didn't get paid. Then I did a show the very next night against the same guy. He was one of the guys that went in with me, named Alex Payne, and made $2 on that show. I was like, man,
Two
I fucking
dollars.
made
Wow.
$2, and not even a fucking hot dog and a handshake, or all these fucking marks like they say now.
Yeah.
And which always pisses me off. I'm like, fuck off, you don't know. And then that was it. I started wrestling at TWA for a long time, and then started like doing like little other shows here and there, here and there. And then it kind of got my break when I went to NWA Wildside in Cornelia, Georgia. And it was shown, we did TV tapings. It was shown all over the country, but like, at 3 o'clock in the morning in goddamn Ames, Iowa or something, I'd never heard of it, but it was cool. That's where AJ Styles started.
Right. Yeah.
And AJ Styles and Jason Cross. And and then I was there for a long time. And I believe we were like the first really like super indie before like Ring of Honor started. Because, and then we started like Spider Nate Webb came down. Some of the guys from IWA who I didn't really know at the time. I'm like, okay, who are these guys? They're pretty fucking good. And just started kind of trading talent. And then 2004 is when I made my debut for IWA.
Right. Right. So you started off that way. When I did the podcast with Toby Klein, there was a host of a wrestling podcast, Drinking at Moe's, and
Huh?
he wanted me to ask Toby, uh, what made you decide that hardcore wrestling was something that you wanted to do? And so that's a good question for you too.
Yeah.
Is what made you decide that that was like an area that interests you, or you thought that you might be able to thrive in? Uh, like what goes into that thought process?
Always know. I mean, like you said, you watch Georgia, the violence. I mean, there was always blood and guts in
Right,
Georgia and Memphis. I mean, they weren't using of course, light tube. They were down there that have like a barbed wire match or something. I look back at them now, I'm like, man, they just totally worked the shit out of the barbed wire. Where our dumbasses would actually run into it, like Dusty
right.
and Tully did barbed wire. They were just working that shit. We're like, oh, I'm just gonna run face first into this goddamn spool of barbed wire. I've always loved the blood and guts just because I saw Abby and Bruiser Brody in person, and
Okay,
Tommy Rich and Buzz Sawyer in person, and Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee in person. These guys just beating the piss out of each other and bleeding buckets. And I really never got into the deathmatch shit till I saw the Stranglemania, the ICP video, with
okay.
Terry Funk and Foley. I was like, what is this? This is totally different than what I'd ever seen before. And that was in like '95 before I actually started wrestling. But that wasn't really my goal when I started, was to be a deathmatch guy. I did like the brawl and the punching and the kicking and the storytelling behind it. And a lot of people say there's no storytelling in death matches. That's bullshit. Yes, there is.
If you do
And,
it right.
if you do it right, there is definitely storytelling in any kind of hardcore match or storytelling in death matches. It's there, like you said, if you do it right.
Okay, so you talked about NWA Wildside and how they had TV.
Mhm.
What was it like being on TV? How different I never got to be on TV. That was one of the things that like eats at me to this day, that all the times that Ian would be like, "Oh, I'm talking to this guy and I think I've got a deal," and everything, and it just never panned out for us. And I always wanted to be able to like be on a televised weekly, the sort of what I grew up watching. I
Yeah.
wanted to be able to do that. Um, what was it like getting to actually do that? Is it is it real different from just a regular show? Yeah, I know you got to hit your times, and
Yes.
you
That's
got to play
all.
to the cameras, and you got to do like
Oh
how
yeah.
much how different is it?
And it was like night and day. Like, the shows I'd done before were just, they would just say, go out and wrestle. They wouldn't give us times. Some guys would be out there, 25, 30 minutes. We're like, fuck, take the shit home. You get there. And like my first night in, I just did a run in. I did run ins for about 2 months before I had my first match. So I was driving 3 hours just to run in and like just save somebody till I finally came out and and finally had my first match. But yeah, I mean, like the whole formatting of a show, I learned so much from Bill Behrens. Like now we do kind of like a TV TWE, it's a promotion in Chattanooga, We taped for IWTV, and Dan Wilson, who was our ring announcer at Wildside, he's also my manager. He formats it, and it looks just like Wildside. You got your opening. If there's an opening video, 35 seconds, and then first match you got 6 to 7 minutes from bell to bell. We don't do from fucking curtain to curtain. Wildside was curtain to curtain. As soon as you walked out the curtain, if there was 3 minutes on the fucking sheet, that's what you had.
You better get to the ring in a hurry.
Yeah, Bill wasn't all about walking around the ring, shaking hands. He wanted you to get in the ring, ring the bell, do the match, you get your ass to the back, and then send the next match out. And then working the camera. I mean, that was something else that Rick Michaels, who was one of the owners of Wildside, and David Young taught me. It was like, always work the camera. So there were so many times like I would go for a pin and my ass would be at the camera and I'd get in the back and they'd be like, you need to turn around. So there's many matches. I'm going for a pin and you could just see it like, oh shit. And I just turn my whole body just so they, I mean, you got to make the facial expressions for the cameras. For the people at home are like, what the hell's going on here? And yeah, like I said, it was night and day. I mean, we would get in, we would tape 2 weeks of TV, start at 8, we'd be done at 10 o'clock. If it was past 10 o'clock, Bill Barons was pitching a fit.
See, now that I would love to have been in a situation like that, as opposed to the Ian where the damn show would be going on at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, we just want to go home, and he's sitting over there going, oh no, if I was paying for a ticket, I'd want to be here all night. Well, no one else wants to be here all night. Can we please like hurry this the hell up?
I always tell a story to some of the younger kids around here about how one night at Ian's, I hit the ring at 11:15, and I was the third fucking match.
Yeah, it's
I think they did like an hour-long Iron Man match to open the show, and I'm like, what the fuck?
you know,
And then Ian's 45-minute promo in between matches.
yeah,
Oh shit!
yeah. Okay, so you
Good
mentioned,
times.
yeah, you mentioned that AJ Styles was on the Wild Side shows. Do you have any stories about AJ Styles from that time frame?
Oh man, he when I started Wildside in May of 2001, and he had already been called up to WCW, and then they closed down. So he was still doing Wildside when I got there, and man, he was just your normal, your normal dude. But we all knew I was like, this guy's going to go somewhere. And then he went to Florida and did a match with Christopher Daniels. And then Daniels at the time, he was the big indie guy, and then he put AJ over, and then AJ was all over the place, and then TNA opened up. But a funny AJ story, we went to South Dakota for the big Sturgis bike rally for a show out there. It was me, AJ, Rick Michaels, Iceberg, David Young, and Tony Mamaluke. And we flew into Denver. I had to rent a Escalade to drive to fucking Rapid City, South Dakota. AJ's really, really religious. So whenever we start cussing, he'd be like, hey guys, calm down, calm down. And it was just a long ass drive. This is actually on the way back. We'd been up here for like 4 days. We are just tired of each other. And I'm goddamming this and goddamming that. And AJ's like, Tank, you need to watch your mouth. I go, AJ, you just need to shut the fuck up and play your goddamn Game Boy. And this son bitch climbed in the very back of the Escalade and like was putting suitcases on top of himself and stayed there like the whole fucking time. But the flight to Denver, Iceberg had the window seat. AJ was in the middle, and I'm on the aisle seat. So AJ is like
Oh,
this
poor AJ.
for like a 4 hour flight.
Oh,
And Tony Mamaluke is sitting across from me. And he's just fucking laughing at AJ. He asked the stewardess, he goes, ma'am, he goes, can you separate the two fat asses and put one on each side of the plane so this motherfucker will level out? And I'm like, what the fuck? And she looked at him like, you are an sir, that's just rude. We're all just fucking cackling. We loved that shit.
But did she know
Yeah.
that you guys were together, or was she afraid that this was going to break into a fight?
I think she was afraid it was going to, because I looked at Tony. I was like, man, fuck you. And then he starts fucking laughing. And she's like, let's just calm down. And we finally, Iggy'd her, hey, we're all together,
Yeah, I could just see people like, oh my god, what's going to happen?
Yeah, yeah. It was crazy. And like I said, AJ was like this. So he just slept with his head on my shoulder for half the flight and the other half on Iceberg's shoulder. And then, yeah, it was good stuff.
Yeah,
AJ, he's a hell of a guy. I mean, he's one of the best ever, in my opinion.
and of course he came in and did IWA stuff. You talked about the AJ Styles Christopher Daniels match. I think Ian brought that in and did it at a even it might not have even been Ted Petty yet. It might have still just been called the Sweet Science, but
Mhm.
I think he brought that match in for like the 2002 or something like that
Yeah.
time frame, and had that match up on our version of TPI. And we were using him quite frequently on the during the Highland days, and we'd do the quad shots or triple shots.
Oh
And
yeah.
so he'd be one of the ones I'd pick up from the airport and have to drive around in my grandma's van, and there'd be just I think there'd be like him and Abyss and Candido and Super Dragon, and I just have a carload of or a van load of people driving around. And luckily I don't recall any times of AJ getting mad about the language that was being used, but he might have just had some music on or something and just zoned. He wasn't participating too much in the carrying on that was going on in the van at that point. So I don't have any good travel stories with him, but yeah, he was a hell of a talent. And do you still like keep in contact with him? Do you ever see him?
Not really. Whenever I need some, last time I went to a fucking like house show, I got a hold of Bill, and they were running a house show here, and I was like, "You think you can give me some tickets?" And he goes, "Yeah." And then I get to the arena and my tickets aren't there, so I call Bill. He goes, "Well, Alan, which is AJ, he's supposed to get them for you." So he goes, "Here's his number." So I just called him. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm almost to the building, and when I get there, I got your name down." So, and then about 20 minutes later, this lady hands me an envelope, and like, dude hooked us up with like front row tickets.
Nice, nice.
I just wanted to sit somewhere up in the damn risers. I didn't really care. 'Cause I had my dad with me, and we had been wrestling together a long time. And then we get there, I'm like, damn, he's a front row. I'm like, maybe we can trade with somebody. I really don't want to sit front row. And when he comes out, he just looks at me and kind of smiles and calls me a mark. So I was, he's walking around the ring and he hugs me and he's like, "You mark." I go, "I know."
Yeah, I've never asked anybody to get me tickets to WWE or AEW show. I've gone to a couple of AEW shows, and I can't even remember the last WWE show that I went to. It's
Yeah, that
hell.
was the last one. It was like,
It might have been last WWE when I went to might have been the pay per view in '97, where like it was like right when Pillman had passed away,
mm,
and they were doing the In Your House in Louisville.
oh yeah.
That might have been the last one that I've been to. It's been a long time for a WWF show, but
But I would get tickets for other friends of mine, not through AJ, but like Rick Michaels made like Rob Conway's gear. So Rob would always, I'd be like, "Hey, you think you can give me 4 tickets?" And I just give them this guy's name, and then they'd show up and they'd be sitting there. I mean, it was always kind of cool to know people, I guess.
nice,
But
yeah.
like and the last time I actually saw him, I had done a little retirement deal in 2017 where I told myself, "Oh, I'm done with this shit." Like 2 months later, we did a Wildside reunion show, and AJ actually was there. Like they worked everybody, and I'm just sitting in the little office, and AJ walks in, and I'm like, "Holy shit, what are you doing here?" And he goes, "You still at this, old man?" And I go, no, I quit about 2 months ago, and then I came back like a year later. So,
So it was
nah.
the typical wrestling retirement,
Hell yeah. Yeah,
just
I mean,
last a little while.
I kept telling everybody, yeah, I'm done. I'm never doing this shit again. Yeah. When money starts talking, I come back.
Well, got to get it while you can.
Yeah, oh, yeah, exactly. If I'm still able to do it, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Nice, nice. So it looks like you won the NWA Wildside tag titles with a couple of different partners before I even saw you teaming with Iceberg in the results.
Yes,
Matter of fact, it looked like you might have even feuded with Iceberg first.
I did.
Because I saw there was a cage of horror match and a no rules match. So what led to what was behind your guys' feud, and then what led to you eventually, finally teaming?
uh, well, they brought Iceberg in maybe 2 or 3 months after me, so we didn't really do anything with each other. I'd wrestled him a couple of times here in Chattanooga, and we became like best fucking friends because we were two brothers from different mothers. Basically, we were the same fucking person. So came into Wildside. He was doing the big monster gimmick, and then I was the monster baby face, and then he laid out my partner was White Trash. We were tag champions for a little while. He hurt White Trash and run him out of the business, and then we started feuding. And then the Cage of Horrors was, gosh, I forgot which show it was. It might have been Hardcore Hell. All it was just a cage we'd put up with some weapons and stuff. And I went over in that, and that was really like the only match we ever had against each other there. And then years goes by, and we're finally like, we went to Bill. We were like, you know, let's just form a tag team. They go, who the hell's going to beat y'all? I'm like, it don't
Ian loved
matter.
making that. Anytime I would make a suggestion, of who I wanted to have in my stable, his response was always, "Who the hell's going to beat that?" And I'm like, "Exactly. That's why
I
I
thought
want
Bill,
it."
I go, Bill is fucking wrestling. We can work around this shit. I mean, Road Warriors lost every now and then, so
Yeah.
he finally had pulled the trigger and teamed us up, and then I mean, we went on a fucking tear for a while until Wildside shut down, and then it opened back up as Anarchy, and I'd hurt my knee, and I came back as like the commissioner for 2 or 3 months. And when I got back in the ring, we started teaming again, and I guess we won the Anarchy tag belts, the Wildside. Yeah, I was Wildside tag champ with like 4 or 5 different people throughout the years. It was kind of crazy. That's one of the things Dan's always hyping up, when he entered in. He does
Right.
podcasts, and I know I was partners. I won the tag belts with White Trash, Sean Tempers, Bulldog Reigns, Iceberg. I think I was 7-time champion with 4 different partners, something like that.
Nice.
Hell, I forgot.
Okay. But you said Wildside shut down. When was that?
Yeah, Bill had got a job with Deep South. They were going to be the new WWE territory in McDonough, Georgia. So he had sold. Actually, I think he just wanted to shut it down so he could focus on that. And we were down for like maybe a month or two, and then Rick Michaels opened back up in the same building as NWA Anarchy, and Jerry Palmer
Okay.
was kind of like the backer of that. Then he came in as the full owner because he was just a fan, and he came to all the shows. It was like, this is just something that don't need to be shut down. And then we ran Anarchy. God, it ran for a while. I think it was like '05, and then '07 I actually left and moved to Ohio. I came back in '09, and then Jerry sold it to somebody else. When he sold it, I left for good because the guy who bought it, I didn't mesh with too well, and I was just like, I don't want to work for this dipshit.
Okay.
And then he would always hit me up and be like, hey, when are you going to come work for me? I said, I'm not. I don't fucking like you. you know.
Yeah. Well,
And then
speaking of working for dipshits, now to make people mad at me, uh, you did a couple of CZW shows
I did.
before you did IWA Mid-South. As a matter of fact, it looked like that might have been the first place that you teamed with Iceberg at on one of these results that I saw. What was it? Compare like maybe what the differences were between when you were in CZW and then when you came to work for IWA.
IWA was more like my first couple of times there. I was like, this. It reminded me a lot of like Wildside, very close knit. Like a family. CZW, it was just all over the fucking rail. It was just off the rail. Everybody was just uh, off to themselves. Really, nobody wanted to bullshit and cut up. And like the match we did, like we rode up with Jimmy Ray. We had no guarantees of getting on the show. Jimmy's like, I think I can get you booked. I go, am I booked or not? And he's like, well, I don't know. So me and Iceberg went ahead and made the fucking 12-hour drive up there. And they put it, yeah, that was the first time we had ever teamed up. And they put us in a match. God damn, I couldn't even tell you all the guys that were in it. But they wanted Iceberg to take the fall. He was Anarchy. He was no, he was still Wildside. He was a Wildside champion. I was tag champion. They wanted to take the fall on Iceberg. I'm like, no, how about I take the fall? But I'm trying to protect our champion.
Right.
And they were just adamant on Iceberg getting fucking pinned. And Iceberg, he's like, I don't give a shit. And I'm like, well, it's up to you. And I should have just changed the shit, but no, we were strangers in a strange land. And I went back the next month and did their best of the best battle royal, and it was a clusterfuck. So I was like, if I never come back here, I don't give a shit. It was cool to wrestle in ECW arena when it was still a dump. I was like, oh shit, this is where Paul Heyman did his fucking speech, and
Right.
here's the Eagle's nest and all that. Other than that, I didn't give two shits.
Okay. So the fact that you were only there for the 2 months, that was more your decision then because you just didn't
Yeah,
enjoy it.
yeah, I was it just wasn't fun, and I don't think Zandig liked us because, I mean, there was money to be made with me and Iceberg against Nick Gage and Nate Hatred, I think, but it was kind of brought up and then just swept under the rug. So the hell with it. It's wrestling. It is what it is.
Yeah, I took Ian there twice and I didn't care for it much at all, and which is I know going to just shock everybody. Uh, did not like it at all, and so after that I was like, you're going to have to find somebody else to. Way too long of a goddamn drive for me to drive all that way and then not enjoy being
Yeah.
there, not enjoy who I was around. Just didn't care for it at all.
I mean,
Um,
there was a couple of guys, that I really buddied up with, but I talked to on a regular basis. With Rockin' Rebel. I know a lot of people hated him, but I got along with him. And Dahmer, I forgot his first name. Shit, he was strong as a fucking ox. He was the first person to ever give me a German suplex, and
was
that best
John?
of the
Was it
best.
John?
John Dahmer, I liked him a lot. But then at the time, Nick Gage and Hatred, they were kind of off to themselves. The Trent Acid was real cool to us. Him and Johnny Cashmere, they were real cool to us. But a lot of the other guys I didn't even talk to. Me and Berg just kind of stayed to ourselves.
So that was pretty much my experience being out there. I think Ian forced me to. The first time I went there with him and took him, they needed somebody to play a cop and go out to the ring and arrest somebody, and so they like wanted me to do it. The other person that was with us was too short. They were like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, no one will believe that." It was like Mullet Man Danny from security at IWA, and they were like, "No one's going to believe that he's a cop. He's too small." So they wanted me to go out there and do it, and I'm like, I don't want to be on this shit show. And Ian's like, "Will you please do this for me? Uh, you know, I want to come back here and work, and if you do this for me, it'll look better for me." And I'm like, "Well, fine. Since you're asking me to do you a favor, I'll go ahead and do this, even though I didn't want to." And so then I go out to the ring and arrest this guy. And I'm like, I can't even remember what the hell the show was now, but I was like, wanted nothing to do with it and stopped going, like say after about 2. And then I think there was like Todd Gordon's group that was running there around the same time, that Pro Wrestling Unplugged or whatever it was called
Yeah.
after. And I took Ian to a handful of those shows, and I'm like, this is dog shit. I can't drive 10 hours one way to sit through this crap. And so I stopped taking him out there to any of it.
Oh yeah.
But as you had mentioned earlier, 2004, you finally come to work to IWA Mid-South. Looked like your debut was at the 2004 King of the Death Matches. I wasn't there the first night of King of the Death Matches, but it looked like, according to the results, it said you beat Deranged in the first round, but then you also beat Deranged in the second round the next
Yes.
night. How did that happen? Was this because of the manslaughter
No, it's
stuff?
not the manslaughter. I've listened to your podcast with Toby. I was supposed to wrestle manslaughter the second night
Okay.
because I think he'd beat Trick Davis the first night or something. And then I didn't know what the hell was going on. Ian was like, well, he left. So you're just going to wrestle Deranged again. I was like, all right, cool. And the stories I had heard throughout the years is he had just got new tattoos and didn't want to get them cut up, which I'm like, whatever. But it was cool for me because my manager, the Rev, would always, and to this day, mention that, be like, he's the first person to run somebody out of a death match tournament. He's that fucking crazy, blah, blah, blah. And then listen to you and Toby, it was kind of like, well, you were coming. I was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah, I could not stand that motherfucker, and they say I had thrown him out of a show in Clarksville and told him to take his shit and get the fuck out, and threw his ticket money back at him. And you know, Ian promised me that he was only going to be there for the first night because he needed filler, and that he was going to job in the first round and he'd be gone when I got there for the second round, so I wouldn't have to, you know, get into a fight or anything.
Yeah.
And so when I heard that he had won, I was like, what the fuck? And, and then I get to the building and it's like, okay, well, he left. He didn't stick around. And I was like, well, that's good, but and then Ian was mad at me. I was like, you're the one that put him over in the first round. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could have easily called me up and told me don't bother making the drive here for night 2, but you know, whatever. And that wasn't, but oddly enough, that wasn't the only time that you ever wrestled the same guy twice in a King of the Death matches.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah,
I did it a couple years later.
yeah. So maybe that just became your thing. You
Yeah.
know,
Tank's got to wrestle the same guy twice.
yeah. You ended up losing in that one in the semifinals to Toby Klein.
Yep.
Were you happy with how your debut went?
Oh, yeah.
You
Yeah, I
know,
thought it was great. I mean, because, it was announced as being the last King of the Deathmatch tournament. So I got a hold of Bill Behrens. I was like, you think you could get me in on this show? And he goes, let me talk to Ian. I guess he had messaged Ian or talked to him, whatever. And he was like, yeah, he said, come on up, but get a hold of Ian first. So I called Ian and he was like, yeah, we'd like to have you up here. I was like, sweet, because this is going to be the last one. Maybe it'll do something on down the road for somebody else. And I get there and we do the show. And then next thing I know, 2005 rolls around and I'm back in King of the Deathmatch tournament.
yeah, there was so many lasts and this is it and everything else at IWA that it's hard to keep track of it all. Had Ian even saw you wrestle at this point? He just
Nope.
took it. Bill Behrens just called him up, and I know Bill was who he went through to get AJ and all of anybody like that. He was anybody
I
that had like TNA ties or anything at that point, you know, he would.
think I think the only person at IWA that had seen me work was Nate Webb and Chris Hero. 'Cause I'd done a couple of shows with them, and maybe he might have been like, "Hey, have you seen this guy?" And maybe Hero was like, "He's actually pretty good. You need to bring him in." So, and the rest was history. I came in, did it was really like my first death match. I'd done like few little barbed wire matches, thumbtack matches, cage matches, and Corp was like save the glass for the finish. We had one board with tubes on it. He goes, save that for the finish, and that's what we did. And then the second night we had a little bit more glass and arranged. I got a pretty nasty cut up here, and I was like, oh, I was getting married like 2 months later. This was in June. We were getting married in August, and my girlfriend, wife now at the time was just like, look at this fucking cut, you dumbass. But it healed up pretty
Oh,
good. And
nice.
then, but there's a cool visual for the semifinals match. She's a nurse, so she got it good and cleaned up for me. And because I actually watched it not too long ago, somebody posted it on YouTube where Toby's standing over me, and he's just hitting the spot, and while he's hitting it, it just opens back up, and the blood's just fucking running down my face, and I'd actually come up with a finish with a barbed wire in the mouth, and I would tap out because there'd been no tap outs the whole weekend. I was like, oh, let's just do something different. And I stole that from Homicide and Steve Carino. So I was like, let's just try something different. And it worked. And then Ian was like, well, you did a good job. And I'll bring you back. So I was like, all right, cool. And then I think the second show I did was in Lafayette, Indiana. And I worked Ryan Boz.
Yes,
And I,
yes.
and I
Was
absolutely
I
loved
was I still with Boz at that point, or had he already?
I think he had already split off from you
Okay, okay.
because you weren't at ringside. So I had a hell of a match with him in Lafayette in front of like 20 people. Because it was like a
Yeah,
Thursday night show. It was kind of weird. It was me, Rain Man, and Jimmy Rave went up. And I absolutely loved Ryan Boz. We became pretty good buddies through my time at IWA.
okay.
He was like that first night I came in, or he was in that King of the Death. We hit it off pretty good. And then that night in Lafayette, he put me over, which he didn't have to. He was the mainstay. I was the
Right.
new kid on the block, so I was expecting to go up there and do the job. And he was like, "No, I want you to go up." I was like, "All right, cool." And then he had booked Iceberg for the Ted Petty. So we came in. We did the night two of the Ted Petty of 2004 and
Yeah.
wrestled Boz, Bradley, Kingston, and Blackjack in a three
Right.
way.
Right. So you guys come in and you're immediately in a tag match for the tag titles
Yeah.
on the show. So I was going to ask about that show. You know, it's widely regarded as one of the best independent shows of all time. The
It,
2004 Ted Petty, definitely one of the greatest IWA Mid-South shows of all time. Uh, there's a lot of Wildside guys that were in that tournament. I know there was like Rain Man and I think Sal Renaro
yeah,
and
Sal,
AJ and uh,
Jimmy
Todd
Rave,
Todd Sexton.
yeah, Sexton, Jimmy Rave.
So quite a few guys that you were familiar with. What are your memories of that night? And did you like watch any of the show while it was going on, or did you guys just stay in the back?
My bro, I watched the whole first night because it was at Highland. And I just kind of sat off in the back. I was like, me and Iceberg, uh, we're trying to avoid the hard cam side. We sat in the very back and we watched the entire first night. And I was just like, man, this is like, it was just so cool to be a part of. I was like, God damn, this is good shit. And we even did a fucking Q&A the next day. And I'll never forget it. I said, somebody asked about me and Iceberg being there. And I go, I mean, I'm honored to be here. I go, but with all this talent sitting up here, I feel like a turd in a punch bowl. And Eddie Kingston popped for that. And like, the last time I saw Kingston was at an AEW show. And he goes, remember that time you said you were like a turd in a punch bowl? I go, yeah. Because, I mean, you had Samoa Joe, AJ, Petey Williams, Nigel McGuinness, Roderick Strong. And then there's Tank and Iceberg.
Well, and then there was the guys that came with Chris Candido. What was it? The like Thunderbolt and
Yeah.
something, and like that was not the greatest, but that was a fun day for me. I went and got Candido from the airport. Of course, he's a surprise, and he's hungry. He wants to go eat, so I had to like go 10 miles past the exit for Highland, like all the way over to the exit for Interstate 65. And I went
Yeah.
down a little ways on that. And we found this little hole in the wall restaurant and ate there. Then got him to the building, like after, we wanted to make sure that everybody was already there and in the building. So like I had missed the Q&A stuff. Um, but I did get to spend a lot of time with Candido, and I couldn't believe that he remembered me from when we had met like 3-4 years before that. And he brought up, was hoping that I was a better driver by that point. So that was just a hell of a show and something to behold, to actually be a part of. And
It was definitely the best independent tournament of all time. I mean, nothing. I mean, like the other TPIs were good, but they weren't that one. You know what I'm saying? I
right.
mean, because the finals was AJ, Joe, and Danielson. Man, fuck. How you
And
gonna
then they
top
were
that?
running, that match in WWE like 10 years later.
Yes.
That match is like main eventing house shows and different events for WWE around the country. And we had done it, in Highland, Indiana. I got to see it first.
Oh yeah, they
Um,
did.
and it was just amazing, some of those times and some of the things that got to happen on the shows. Um, Speaking of TPIs and tournaments, you're an actual competitor in the 2005 Ted Petty Invitational. Did you take any special pride in being both a King of the Death Matches and a TPI guy, or did it matter at all?
Oh, it was cool because not too many guys got to do both.
Yeah,
And
it's got to be a short list.
and um and then in like 2005, I did King of the Death, Ted Petty, and the Strong Style tournament.
Yeah,
And Hero was like, I believe me and you were the only two to ever do all three in one year. I was like, hell yeah, that's a
good
cool ass
company to have.
accomplishment. Yes. And in 2005, I wrestled Bradley, and probably as Joey Eastman will say to this day, is the best 5 minute match ever in a fucking Ted Petty Invitational because it was just fucking. It was a sprint. It was 5 minutes. It boom, 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 boom. He hit the finisher 1, 2, 3. And then the next night, I teamed up with Rain Man against the Tomasellis. And that was cool shit. And I believe AJ had to cancel because he had a strep throat. So I don't
Yeah.
forget who took his place. But it was a good tournament. I mean, it was like seeing the emergence of like Tyler Black, and all these younger dudes who are fucking superstars now, IWA at that time, just looking around the locker room, like, yeah, this kid's going to be good. This kid's going to be good. This kid's going to be good. And the ones who I always picked out fucking made it, Hero, Punk, Seth Rollins, Tyler. I still call him Tyler Black. I don't give a fuck what anybody
Yeah.
says. And I've got to wrestle some of the guys that Tyler Black has trained. One called this kid named one called Manders, and he said like in his training school, he goes, watch videos of this guy, and it was me. He goes, this is how a big guy should work. You see, he's not bumping for every little fucking thing. Some guys want to go out there and give too much. Fuck that. If I ain't got a bump, I ain't gonna bump. You know,
Well, it doesn't make sense when you're as
no,
big as you are. So you mentioned all the stuff you did in 2005. Another thing that you did in 2005, I mentioned it in the intro. You're a member of Team NWA, Team Ed Schumann, in the War Games match for control of IWA Mid-South. Um, you know, that was supposed to be my retirement show. I wanted out at that point, and there was things that I wanted to do in the business, and so I rented the limousine for the Fannin family to ride around in before the show, and I had Smart Mark video, film me giving
Yeah.
a pep talk to the Fannin family and arguing with Eddie Kingston in the limos. Keep the fuck away from Tank. He's the one guy that you got to stay away from. And Kingston's like, I'll beat him. And I'm like, no, you stay the hell away from him. Let Chris Hero be the one to
Yeah.
get beat up. Don't you save yourself for the match. The match is the important one, and everything. Putting tried my best to put you over, and then we got to do the parking lot attack on Brandon Tomaselli. My homage to the Horsemen taking out Dusty
Oh,
Rhodes
yes.
in the parking lot. So I was like trying to cram as much into that night as I possibly could to make it a memorable farewell for me. What are your memories of that match? And you did 6 or 7 for like Wildside, Anarchy, whatever it was, be
Yeah.
called at the time. How did it compare to those matches? Which one was your favorite of the war games that you participated in?
Well, that was my first ever 2 ring. All the ones we did at Wildside were all in 1 ring. It was like teams
Okay,
of 4. But we did, was it teams of 5? With 3 teams of 5.
right.
So 15 guys out there. And what I remember most about it is we did the coin flip match. It was me, Hero, and
Kingston.
Kingston. And I won the match. We won the fucking coin toss or whatever. And I think it was me, the Tomaselli, Chandler McClure, and Eric Priest.
I believe so. Sounds right.
And I had just come back from, I'd hurt my knee, so I'd been out for like 2 or 3 months. And if I'm thinking correctly, the original War Games had been postponed because we lost the building or something had happened.
Well, we had lost the building. Candido had passed, so we needed to like change up my
Yeah.
team, and it was just a string of bad luck, in tragedy. Probably should have just not even bothered doing the match. There was so much stuff going on with it. So yeah, it ended up. It was supposed to have been in the early spring, and it ended up getting pushed back to July. And
Because I
it
remember,
changed venue. It ended up being in Valparaiso, which we rarely
yes,
ran.
but it still drew very, very, very good. And but I was more upset because the original I was going to be able to get to work with Candido, and we had talked it over in the back, and he was already wanting to call spots with me. I thought it was cool as shit. And he was just like, man, he goes, I'll sell it like I'm in a fucking electric chair. You just do whatever. And then, he passed away and then lost the building. But actually, now of the show, the funniest thing the whole fucking night was we were in the back, and I believe the first match was Josh Abercrombie, Tyler Black, and maybe Merrick Brave. Fucking Merrick or Tyler Black had busted his nose. He had like a trickle of blood running down his face, and he gets in the back, and Bull Payne goes, "Why the fuck you getting color in the first match?" And Tyler's just looking at him like, he goes, "Don't you know what fucking War Games is? It's blood, it's guts, and you're getting color in the first fucking match." He's like, "You goddamn Mark." And he cussed his boy out. And Tyler's just shaking. He goes, "And I'm just fucking with you." Bull fucking scared me that night. I was, "Oh shit, is this real? Is this real?"
Bull,
Yeah, he was.
Bull, that definitely sounds like Bull, and I'm sure you probably listened to Mitch's story about Tyler Black in the last episode that aired, or maybe you haven't gotten to that
I,
point
I hadn't
yet,
gotten to that one yet.
where he Tyler was working out in the middle of the dressing room, and he had a hole in his shorts, at a very bad place to have a hole, and and Pondo instigated Mitch to go check Tyler Black's oil and see if he was a quart low. And so Mitch went over there and stuck his finger in and checked the oil. And Tyler Black wanted his own dressing room after that. It's like telling Ian that he didn't feel comfortable in the locker room and he needed his own locker room. And Ian's like, we don't do that shit here. You don't get your own locker room. We're like, well, can he get his own locker room? Yeah. Ian's like, no, he wouldn't take it even if I had offered it to him. And, but, I did. My main memory of Tyler was like his second ever match. I think it was like his second ever match, and he had, trained with Danny Daniels, and so he was wrestling Danny Daniels on his show, and they went like 20 some minutes, bumping all over the place. He's like near falls out the ass, and the match finally ends and they come into the back and him and Tyler and Merrick walk in and they're both talking about how perfect the match was. And I was like, that is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Ric Flair has never claimed to have a perfect match.
Yeah.
And your second match ever, you're going to tell me it was perfect? And he's like, well, what was wrong with it? I was like, well, for starters, Danny Daniels has won a Ted Petty Invitational. He's a two-time IWA Mid-South heavyweight champion. He trained you, and this is your second ever match, and you went 25 minutes with him. It makes him look like shit. He should have been able to beat you in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, and I was like, no, well's nothing. Not a perfect match. Don't ever even say it. And I had nothing to do with him after that. I was like, if you're gonna think you're perfect after two matches, what you might as well. What are you even here for? You should be main event in WrestleMania after your second match, according to you. But I mean, he's went on to do it, so I guess more power to him. I guess.
The actual War Games match, it was a blast. We did a deal where Ian and Chris put me in a double STF and I tapped out. But then we were leaving the cage, and like the Tomasellis, I'd always been pretty much a babyface the whole time at IWA. And then, but they stuck me with Schumann's team. And Chandler McClure, that fucker, like spit on me like after the match. He fucking like grabs my shirt because we had like the NWA shirts, and he fucking spit on me. And I about lost it there. So we got in the back. And I said, look, motherfucker, you ever do that again, I'm gonna knock your fucking teeth down your throat.
Wow.
Oh man, I was just trying to. I go, no. I go, you can sit there and berate me, but you fucking spit on me. And Eric Priest and Thomas Elliott are just sitting there like, oh shit, oh shit. But I'm a type. I get mad for like 5 minutes and then I'm over it, and I go back. All right, dude, I'm cool. We're cool. Let's just forget about it. I'm not mad at you anymore. But at that time, I was like, I'm thinking, do I just punch this motherfucker in the face now here in front of the crowd? No, no. But but that match was cool. Like I said, it was the first time I'd ever done two rings, and all the talent in that fucking match. J.C. Bailey, B.J. Whitmer. He's another one that's fucking awesome. Always loved B.J. Whitmer. Court. It was just a mixture of your deathmatch guys and your technical wrestlers.
Right.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was good things, and you talk about Chandler McClure, and don't know how much of the stuff that you angle wise that you were following since you weren't on all the shows, but of course Chandler was with me trying to become a member of the Fannin family, and I kept stringing him along and doing you need to do this for me, and you need to do this, and you need to do this, and then you can be a part of the family. And I just kept stringing him along. And at one point there was the show in Highland that New Jack was on, and New Jack comes in super late and he's drunk off his ass. I'm running the show because Ian's somewhere else. I don't know if he was in Europe or if he was out in California. but he was at a different show. So I'm running things and I'm managing Eddie Kingston and BJ in a cage match where they end up dropping the titles to Boz and Bradley and Trick Davis. And I'm wearing all white because it was like my first night managing Eddie Kingston, and he had the all white wild cards gear.
Yeah.
Because him and Blackjack were the champs, but Blackjack quit or got out of wrestling, whatever that story was. So he joins the Fannin family. He teams with BJ. That's the new tag champs. So I'm in all white to welcome Kingston into the fan. We're in the back going over the match, and New Jack comes up to me and tries to write on me with a Sharpie because I'm wearing white. And I told him to get the fuck away from me. And he's like, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" And I said, "Well, I'm the motherfucker that's not paying you tonight since you showed up late, you're drunk, and now you're trying to write on me. So get the fuck away from me." And he gets all pissed off and he gets up into my face and he's like, "Hey, man, I didn't know you were running this show. I thought I was working for Ian Rotten tonight." And I'm like, "Well, Ian's not here. You're working for me tonight." And we're like at each other. And, everybody in the back is like flipping out and they're like, "Holy shit, what the fuck?" Corporal's trying to separate us. Tracy's trying to separate us. Hero's trying to separate us. And I'm like, sitting there going, this motherfucker can kill me, but he ain't going to disrespect me. I'm not losing the respect of this damn dressing room and pussying out when he's getting in my face. So I'm like right there at him and we're screaming at each other. And they like Tracy finally gets him taken away and we're getting ready to go to the ring for our match. And they go, "Do you want us to send Chandler and McClure out there with you to protect you in case New Jack comes out to try to get you?" And I'm like, "So then I got to protect myself and Chandler? No, keep Chandler the fuck back here. I'll be fine out there. Don't worry." And so like the whole match, I constantly just walking so that, I can see if New Jack comes from anywhere. But it just always tickled me that they were like, "You want us to send Chandler out there to help you just in case?" And I'm like, I have an easier time defending myself than trying to protect two people. All right.
Oh yeah.
You leave poor Chandler out. So I could just see poor Chandler like thinking that you were about ready to kill him for spitting out in the cage. And oh my goodness.
Good times. Good times.
And so also happening in 2005 was a company named IWA Deep South started running, and we chatted about this off air because I don't know this story all that well. As you know, I did not pay attention to other companies at all, especially during this time frame. So there's a 2005 deathmatch tournament in IWA Deep South, and you're in it, and all of a sudden the show is shut down. Yep. And they got to redo it a couple months later, and you end up winning the tournament. What are your memories of the show getting shut down and winning the redo of this Deep South tournament?
Yeah, I believe it was in Piedmont, Alabama, and so it was the King of the Deathmatch show. And like Ian was in it, Pondo, myself, Iceberg, Freak Show, Insane Lane, a few other guys, Brandon Prophet. And but there was like he had regular matches like Action Mike Jackson and some other guys. They wrestled first. I think we got through three death matches, and diehard Dustin Lee got a pretty bad cut on his back, so they called the ambulance. And whenever an ambulance gets called, police show up, and I guess people were wigging the fuck out because when I went out for my match, all I saw was little old ladies and kids. I was like, "Oh, well, what the hell is this? This ain't like your normal deathmatch crowd." I guess
No.
I guess everybody came to see Mike Jackson, but when they saw the glass and barbed wire, some people freaked out, and then they just shut the show down. Kevin Brandon came in the back and was like, "Show's over." I'm like, "Okay, whatever." He hits me up. God, About a month later, we're going to redo it in another place in Alabama. I go, are you sure we're going to be able to get to this whole fucking show? He goes, yeah. All right, cool. So I did this one. I wrestled Hellware Assassin first, Ian in the semifinals, and then I had Necro in the finals. And I actually won that tournament. And shitty draw, man. There might have been 30 people there. But one of the people there was Conrad Thompson. He was
Wow.
insane. He was Insane Lane's brother-in-law at the time.
Wow.
Not
Okay.
knowing who he was at the time, I just know when I beat Necro, he was booing the shit out of me because everybody loved Necro.
Wow. Okay.
And then come to find out years later, it's fucking Conrad Thompson.
Wow. I had no idea about that either.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't either. Guy, it was a few years later when Lane told me. I was like, really? He was the guy giving me shit, and he goes, yeah. I go, well, fuck him.
wow. Okay. Interesting. I did
But yeah,
not.
that was the start of IWA Deep South was the show getting shut down and then redoing it a couple months later, and then he's done a tournament just about every year since. It's called the Carnage Cup now.
Okay. All righty. You also wrestled Samoa Joe. You mentioned how you were also in the Strong Style tournament in
Yes,
2005. Any memories of facing off with Samoa Joe?
probably my favorite match I've ever had.
Okay.
It was. I remember you picked me up at the airport, took me to the hotel. You went and picked Joe up, and we shared a room. And just sitting there, I'd been on a couple shows with him for some of Ian's shows, so we just chit chatted. But like he was made me look like $1,000,000. He goes, hey, I'm going to win, but we're going to make it look like you win because you're here more than me. And like no, and like wanted me to no sell all his offense. So I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, we're gonna make you look like a monster. And it was just good psychology, and he made me look a lot better than I really am, and that's just how good Samoa Joe is, you know. And then I believe he was supposed to win the whole tournament, but he told Ian that he hurt his ankle and he didn't want to wrestle no more. It's like he goes, oh yeah, I think I hurt my ankle on that dive. I'm done for the night. And he was like, okay. So they had to, switch some shit around or whatever. But yeah, that's the match that I'm very, very proud of. And I always, I'm known for shoot headbutts. So he gave me a couple of shoot headbutts, and I'm like, yeah, I'm never headbutting a Samoan again. That was fucking stupid.
All righty. So we're going to jump ahead to 2007. And I had mentioned this in the beginning of the podcast, uh, where we both talked about the Masked Superstar. Well, in 2007, you end up wrestling Demolition Axe on
Yes,
a school fundraiser show for IWA, the same show that I managed Marvelous Mitch Ryder against the Honky Tonk Man.
yes.
You wrestled Demolition Axe. Do you got any memories of that night and getting to wrestle him?
Oh man, that was like a dream come true. I got there, he's just sitting there, and I just sit down with him, introduce myself. We just start talking, and it was cool because I had him for about 2 hours to myself because everybody else. It kind of bummed me out and pissed me off that all the younger kids were going over their flashy fucking spots, and I'm like, there's a fucking legend sitting right here. You should be sitting here under the fucking learning tree, but you're worried about how many goddamn cool flips you can do. And I even mentioned it to him. He was like, "Oh well, it's no biggie." And we just sat there, man, and shot the shit. We became, and I've stayed in contact with him ever since
Nice.
through text and Facebook or whatever. Just very, very cool guy. And he was all like, "What do you want to do for a finish?" And I go, "Well, how about we just do some old school Southern wrestling, and I'll pull a chain out, and the referee catches me. You pull a chain out, you hit me, and you pin me." And that's exactly what we did. And we got in the back, and he gave me a shoulder tackle, and I took the bump out on the floor, and I did the Terry Funk's one of my favorites of all time. The Terry Funk sale where I'm just fucking swinging wildly and taking a bump on the floor. And we got near the back, and he was like, selling like that is like people in Madison Square Garden who are on the very top of the fucking building. They see that, they can't see the facial expressions, but they see
Right.
your body language and there. And he's like, that's just perfect fucking selling. And I was like, man, this is awesome. I mean, getting a compliment from fucking Bill Eadie, that just meant the world to me. I've been wrestling, a little over 10 years at the time, or yeah, 10 years. It was it was cool. And then getting to hang out with the Honky Tonk Man later on that evening, we'd all went somewhere and he went with us. And I didn't know Bill went to the hotel and went to bed. But Honky Tonk Man, we all just kind of hung out and shot the shit. And he was cool too, This, I'm a mark for talking to the legends.
Right.
And one of Ian's shows, Terry Funk was there. I didn't get to wrestle him or whatever, but I got to sit there and shoot the shit with him for about an hour. And it was just like some of the best times of my life. Just
Was that
getting
the Highland show that he was on?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just getting to shoot the shit with him, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. Because to me, Terry Funk is top tier.
Oh, he was amazing, and I will never forget because it worked out like I couldn't have asked for it to have been any better because Dusty was on the show before.
Yes.
And so Funk comes in and he comes up to like he walks in and he's like, "Young man, I understand that yellow egg sucking dog Dusty Rhodes was on the show before me." And I'm like, "Oh, this is fantastic. Oh my
Yeah.
god." And I'm like, "Yes, he did, sir." And he's like, "Tell me what that fat son of a bitch did." And I'm like, "Well, he bled buckets. He brawled around the building." He's like, "Stop right there, young man. I know what I need to do." And he was going to go out there, and by God, he was going to top it. So then we're going over the stuff in and he's like, "Okay, so you're the heel manager," and I'm like, "Yes." And he's like, "So what did Dusty do? Like, did you interact with Dusty at all in the match last time?" And I was like, "Yeah, Dusty gave me the bionic elbow, um, left me laying, humiliated me. They went over." And he's like, "And we're going over on you again tonight, young man?" And I was like, "Yes, sir." And he's like, "Well, tonight you beat me up. You need to get your heat back. You're the main heel here. What's your gimmick? What do you do?" And I'm like, "Well, I've got a briefcase right now that I'm like carrying around a smorgasbord of weapons and my paperwork to shut down IWA, the contracts that I've got with Ian, where he owes me all this money, and I've got it in the briefcase." And he's like, "Well, you hit me with that briefcase. We got to make sure that if you're losing again, you got to have your heat." And I'm like, "No, you can do something to me. I don't need." And he's like, "No." And he was insistent that that I get to do something to him so that I can keep my heat. And I just thought that was amazing that, one of the greatest of all time was more worried about my position and my standing going forward than, what he was going to do that night. And I was just amazed by that. And like, I, I didn't get to see a lot of him when I was growing up because he was mostly retired or over in
Yeah.
Japan. So going into that, Dusty was at the top of my list, and getting to take that bionic elbow, I thought it couldn't get any better than that. And then the very next month, Terry Funk doing that for me, um, really elevated him to the top of the list in my book after that.
Yeah, Dusty was running Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling down here in Carrollton, Georgia, and he wrestled Iceberg one night. I was on the show, and he goes, "I want you to come in after Iceberg beats me and put the boots to me, and I'll make the big comeback, give you both bionic elbows." I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I roll in, we're beating him down. He gives us the flip flop and fly. He gives us the double elbows. And I fucking took the big one, fucking took the big bump, rolled out of the ring, got some color for him. I got back in the ring, And he's like, what the hell? He's bleeding. So he gives me, he just keeps elbowing the shit out of us. We get in the back. He goes, baby, you ain't got to do all that. I go, if J.J. Dillon can get color from an elbow, I can get color from an elbow.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I said, I never had to wrestle with Terry, but that one night I just got to sit there and just shoot the shit with him. And then I got to shoot the shit with Dory Funk Jr. That's cool as shit too. He's one of the best that ever fucking do it.
Nice. So also in 2007, you win the aforementioned IWA Mid-South Deathmatch title that was
Yes.
became a championship belt. You defeated Corporal Robinson and Joliet for it. Do you have any memories of that specific match?
Not really. I remember it was just me and Court, man. We just every time we just beat the shit out of each other. And then me winning the belt. And I remember losing it. We did a show in Sellersburg, Indiana. It was me and Necro and a fans bring the weapons match. And uh, me and Necro were like, let's don't use any weapons. Fuck them. So he went out there and he beat me with a crossbody off the top rope. Ian was mad as shit. I think I used maybe like one tube on him or something. And he hit me with a tube. And then he beat me with a crossbody off the top rope.
Now, you said you lost the title in Sellersburg, Indiana. Nick Manawa wanted me to ask because you actually lost the title on IWA Deep South show, I believe, where Low Key took it
Yeah.
because Ian owed him money. So Nick Manawa wanted to know that story.
I'm sitting there and Loki walks up to me and goes, you have a belt, don't you? I go, yeah. And he goes, um, I mean, he was all polite about it. It wasn't like, give me a goddamn belt. He goes, Ian owes me a lot of money. He goes, I'm going to hold that belt hostage until he gives me my money. So I just reached in my bag and I handed it to him. I call Ian the next day. I go, hey, Loki took the belt because you owe him money. He goes, why'd you give it to him? I go, it's motherfucking Low Key. He'd have beat the shit out of me if I didn't give it to him. What was funny, he had went to Chuck Taylor before me because Chuck Taylor was the IWA Mid-South champion. And he was just all like, man, what do I do? I go, give him the fucking belt. He's going to beat the shit out of you. He goes, I'm really scared. I go, just give him the belt. But I go, so I asked later on, I went back up to Low Key. I go, just take this one. I go, Chuck Taylor's scared to fucking death. He goes, all right. So after I lost possession of the belt, I don't know what the hell happened to it afterwards. I don't know if Ian ever paid him and got it back.
Oh, I'm
But
pretty
I
sure he
never,
never paid him because it was Mark Wolf's belt. So not like Ian had any money into it. So,
yeah.
uh,
But yeah, I was just sitting there and as polite as could be, you know how Low Key's got that deep voice. He's like, Ian owes me money. Can I take your belt? I was like, sure.
well,
Because,
you bring up Low Key, guys were taking bets when Low Key came in the first time, and I went to pick him up from the airport. A lot of the guys were taking bets amongst themselves as to whether we would like kill each other on the side of the road before we got to the building because they thought that we would just like not just despise each other and get into a fight before we got there.
yeah,
And um, and me and Low Key ended up getting along great. I never had a problem with him, and I remember you said Bill Behrens was like, who the hell's gonna beat you in Tank? I
yeah,
remember like at the time I was like doing the bad motherfuckers, and I'm like, I need Tank and I need Low Key to join Mitch and Bull. And
yeah,
he goes, who the fuck would beat you guys? And I was like, that's exactly my point. I should, the, you guys would have been naturals for what that
oh
I
yeah,
would have tried to put together, and he would not do it. Would not do it.
yeah. But
Uh,
I think Ian was pissed off at me. But I'm like I said, I go, it's Low Key. I mean, he'll just beat the shit out of me if I didn't give it to him. But I think if I'd have told Key, no, I don't want to do that, he'd have been like, okay, and just walked away. You know, I'm all about, man, if you owe somebody money, give them their fucking money.
right,
And
right.
a lot of people throughout the years I've heard Ian, screwed over on money. He never once screwed me over. He shorted me one time, but he made up for it the very next week. He was like, this house a little low, whatever. Like, just give me next time. The next week rolled around, and I believe it was one of the shows that you and Mickey ran because he went to Cooperstown. I think Ripken was going in the Hall of Fame or some shit, and I think it was in maybe Midlothian or whatever. I go, just I know where you're at. Just give it to me later on. No biggie. But then throughout the years, I hear other guys saying, "Well, he fucked me out of this and that." I'm like, "Shit, sorry." you know.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the guys have over the years now said, that it's as much their fault. They're the ones that kept coming back and letting him run up that much debt on,
Yeah.
to them. And, it's almost how I look at, all the guys that Paul Heyman did the same thing to in ECW. And, they're talking about all the money that I was like, well, you're the ones that kept showing up, and if you're going to keep showing up and he's not paying you, why is he going to start paying you? You know,
Exactly.
and
But he always took care of me. But can we backtrack a little bit? I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
you said the one King of the Death because I always like this story. The one King of the Death, I beat Deranged twice. Well, I had to wrestle Bull Payne twice.
Yes, yes.
And goddamn, that first night we did a barbed wire was wrapped around the dog collar, so this motherfucker wouldn't bend. So we're in there trying to fucking work with this son of a bitch. And I remember Bull looked at me and goes, "Fuck this goddamn dog collar, take it off." So we ended up taking it off and just punching and kicking and doing our shit. And I guess Ian was like, we'll just do it again tomorrow night. Somebody had canceled or whatever. He goes, we'll just do it again tomorrow night. All right, whatever you want to do, boss man. Yeah, that goddamn dog collar. I mean, it was stiff as a board. And we were trying to move toward each other and you could hear this shit. But it's like, it was just awful. And we locked up. We did a couple of spots, and he was like, fuck this goddamn dog collar. Take this motherfucker off. And and then like the next night we had a lumberjack match. The lumberjacks had tubes, and I guess we did a deal where they didn't hit me but hit him, and I ended up winning the match. But that was the first time I ever took the bat shot. And you talk about this, I mean, Bull's a total pro, and I never knew how he worked that shit. And I was like, he's gonna fucking kill me with his bat, man. It's just the way it hits and just rolls to the back. I was like, man, that's fucking easy peasy right there. Love Bull Payne, man. Learned so much from him as my time there because I had actually mentioned I did a Nick Gage Invitational last year, and I cut a promo about all the unsung heroes of IWA Mid-South that I learned this shit from. And I'd messaged Mitch Page about it. And he had seen it, and he was like, "Brother," he goes, "You had the tools. You just needed a little bit of seasoning." And that's what I learned from Corp and Nick Rowe and Toby was the how to tell a story with this shit. Not just out there bang 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 with light tubes.
Right.
Let's build up to it before. That's like when first ever glad, and I'm guilty of it every now and then. We'll do an opening spot where we hit each other with some tubes or whatever, but I try to save that for later. I like to do my little brawl around the building and then get back in and then start waylaying each other with the fucking tubes. And I believe, and like Mickey, I finally got to wrestle her. I was the first match she had in the King of the Death. Oh 07, oh 08. Hell, I forgot.
I got
She
it down where you wrestled her in 07.
oh 07. Yeah, she beat the shit out of me. It was great. Toughest
Did you have any problems losing to her with
shit.
her being a
No,
girl?
I called it
Okay.
because I told Ian I was like, uh, I actually had a show in Georgia the next night, and I told Ian I go book me and Mickey because we were doing the IWA Deep South versus IWA Mid South. I'd kind of turned heel or whatever. I go, let's do me and Mickey first round and she can beat me. And he's like, are you sure? I go, man, this shit, brother, this shit's a work. And I'll still keep my heat, you know. I can lose to anybody and still fucking be over and keep my heat.
Right.
And then the way we did it, you know, we beat the piss out of each other, and she did that fucking kick to the face, and I was like, I'll have the bat, and when I lift it up to fucking glom you with it, you kick it into my fucking face. Boom, 1, 2, 3, and that place went ape shit. And I think the next night she wrestled brain damage. I think brain damage beat her, but she took a beating and fucking kept on, ticking. That's just how
Right.
she was, and that's how I got to wrestle her about a year and a half ago here in Chattanooga for ICW. And dude, she fucking brings that shit
Yep.
every goddamn time. You know,
Yep.
love,
Absolutely.
love, love Mickey Knuckles and all the stories and shit that happened between her and Ian. I stay out of all that horse shit. Ain't got nothing to do with me. But yeah, I love her to death. I mean, she's fucking making a resurgence as the toughest bitch in professional wrestling.
Well, and that's what she is.
And goddamn right.
That is what she is. And it's, yeah, it's so nice to see that she's finally, you know, going to Australia, going to Japan, getting to do
Oh yeah,
these things that, you know, I would have thought that when her legs snapped in half,
that was
there,
it.
I would have thought that that would have been it. But no, here she is, fucking 15, 16, 17 years later, still fucking doing it,
Sometimes
and
you need to take that break. I'm sure she took a break. I know she had got married and had kids, and then I mean, we all do the wrestler retirement. Maybe she retired, and then it's like, fuck it, I'm gonna go do a show here and there. That's basically what happened to me. I'd quit in 2017. Took a couple of, but I think I was like 17 months off. I got booked for a Mania Week show in Jersey. And then I was like, oh, I'll do a show here and there. And then COVID hit and just fucked everything up. Then after COVID was over, I got a chance to go to Florida during Mania Week. And then Rev is with me now. And I was just like, well, we'll just do shows here and there. And damn, that's been 5 years ago, and it's every fucking weekend. So the wrestling retirement don't last.
well, mine has lasted for 17 years, but I don't know if you've seen me on social media. I've started posting saying I've got some unfinished business that I want to try to knock off this year before I turn 50 in November.
Yes.
Um, and like managing Mickey's one of them, and there's some other guys that I want to manage. So
Yeah, it'd be
I'm
great. I
trying
mean,
to put some feelers out there, but so far, of course, I don't know anybody anymore that's running in the Chicago area, and the only one that I know that's running, is one that I would rather get run over by a car than go work for, uh, unless I shove his, go there and dump him into a fucking trash can. Uh, but that's neither here nor there. So it's got feelers out there and trying to get some things done, but maybe something will come of it, and then
yeah,
I could add my name to the list of wrestler retirements that didn't stick. But one last question I had, just because I haven't had anybody on to really ask this question to. You came back and did IWA in 2015,
yes.
uh, and did the Deathmatch King of the Deathmatch tournament then. Long after I was gone, were there any differences between that era of IWA and when we were running together?
No, not really. I mean, it was had a bunch of the same crew. I mean, there were some newer guys. Dale Patrick's, John Wayne Murdoch was making a name for himself. Uh, Matt Tremont, he's a fucking master at fucking deathmatch wrestling. That's what I had in the first round. And then Masada was there. And no, it just felt like I said, that was my first IWA show. The last one I did before that was '09 against Masada. And never. I never thought I'd go back, but then got the offer. I was like, well, fuck, I get to wrestle Tremont? Hell yeah, I'll do it. And like I was saying earlier, me and Ian never really had words. We had one little beef on Facebook over his Misty, well, the fucker name is. I'd retired, and he was going to have some kid that was like 15 years old, the Ted Petty, and I just voiced my opinion on it. And we kind of had a little bit of heat there, but that just kind of died away. Just went away. And I'm like, man, why are you going to have a fucking child in that fucking Ted Petty? That's supposed to be a big fucking deal. And Misty chimed in, and I chimed in even more. And I pretty much told her, I was like, who the fuck are you anyway? And then Ian hit me up. I was like, hey, bro, it's whatever. It's your show. Do what the fuck
Just
you
the
want.
2-bit fucking rat. That's
Yeah.
all she is. But
But man, my whole time at IWA was great. I loved everything about it. It was just it was a good time. Like I said, it reminded me of like Wildside in Georgia. It was like a one big happy family. There was really no beefs, or if there was, I never heard of anything. And I wasn't, but like in '07 when I moved to Ohio, I got to do a lot more shows for Ian because I was only 2 hours away instead of 6 or 7 hours away. So it was easier for me to get to Chicago or Midlow and Joliet. And Ian was cool and he put me against a lot of good guys that I would have never got to wrestle anywhere else.
yeah, it's provided a lot of great memories. We're going to wrap this up with just some quick questions
Okay,
and name associations. Um, what was your favorite death match that you did?
man. Uh,
And it doesn't have to be IWA. This is,
no, it was,
in your career, what was the favorite death match you've ever done?
I can't just boil it down to one. I had a kick-ass match with Necro in 2005. Not the one that I beat him in the finals, but it was for IWA Mid-South at Plainfield. One of my favorites. Another favorite was with Matt Tremont and here in Chattanooga. And then there's been so many fucking matches. And we did a fun one time. It was me, Mitch Page, and Brain Damage. It was like an opening round match where Brain Damage was kind of the new kid on the block, so we just kind of just beat the shit out of him. And he turned out to be a fucking monster.
Yeah.
But I would say Necro and Tremont are my tied for number one.
Okay. And you had already, I was going to ask you your favorite non-death match, but I think you had already pretty much, at least IWA wise, you had said the match with Samoa Joe.
No
Is
Joe, yeah.
that in your career
Yeah, that's number
encompassing
one.
everything? Number one for
That, that
everything.
that's number one.
Okay. What is your favorite death match stipulation?
Hmm. So that was the good thing about doing the shows for Ian. Is that each match had a stipulation. Now it's just they just throw a bunch of fucking shit in the ring, and nobody knows how to work around this shit. The
Yeah.
younger kids, they just throw a bunch of shit. I always liked uh, the fucking the unlucky seven, the
Staple.
staple guns. Like I said, I don't mind the tubes. I ain't fucking around with no cactus or fire. Don't like that shit at all. But probably like the staple gun stipulation, especially as a heel, because I've done it in shows down here. Like you got to staple $7 to somebody, and I would have six to me. I'd pull a five out of my boot and two ones. Bam, there's $7. And me and the
Yeah.
guy I would do it to would understand it, but the marks were like, "What the fuck? That's only three bills." And no, it's really seven.
Uh-huh. I like that. That's pretty good. So I was gonna say any stipulations you won't do. You say you don't fuck with fire or cactus.
Hell no.
Um, I remember Ian and Corporal did a match involving cactus. I believe it was up in Milwaukee for Carmine, and I had to sit there and try to pull the cactus spines out from the, and that was, oh, I hated that. So I can't imagine like what it felt for them. So I don't blame you on that one. And yeah, fire. That's. Is there any other stipulations that you won't do? Like barefoot thumbtacks, anything
No, I'm
like
not
that?
doing that shit either. I'm diabetic, so my feet are fucked up anyway, and there's just no way in hell I'm stepping on anything.
Yeah, I told Pondo on the podcast that he did with me that when he talked me into letting them flare bump me into the tax barefoot, that was the worst pain I ever had in my entire life, and then he couldn't even remember doing it, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
God damn it, you know. It's like I know you've done a lot of shit in your life, but you know the worst pain ever inflicted upon me, I would hope it would have left more of a lasting impression on the man, but it did not. What was your worst injury that you've ever sustained?
Man, it was '07. I mean, I've had tons of pretty bad cuts, but the one injury that sucked the worst, I was wrestling Brent Albright in the 2007 Ted Petty, and I twisted my ankle about 15 seconds into the match, and it swelled up. And I think we went like 15 minutes, and I could barely fucking walk. And Brent the whole time, he's a pro. He's like, bro, let's just take it home. Let's just take it home. I'm like, no, man, fuck that. So I was using, we did some brawl on the outside, and I was using the rail to hold myself up. I'd lean up against it or lean up against the ring because I said, I've done this shit a long time. Ways to work around injuries. And then it finally got to the point, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. It was, and then once we got the boot off and that fit just swelled up and I had to drive home, I'm
Mm,
like, yeah, this is, this sucks. But I ended up in a walking boot for like 6 weeks.
wow. Okay.
It was a high ankle sprain. The doctor said I'd have been better off breaking it. Well,
It's
fuck.
crazy how that happens, where a sprain can be worse than just breaking it.
Oh yeah.
You know, who was your favorite overall opponent?
Hmm. Probably Matt Tremont.
Okay.
Overall, but in IWA, man, I mean, getting to tangle with guys like Boz and Bradley and Hero and Kingston, just one, and Samoa Joe. I mean, it's just hard to pick one. You know,
Yeah.
there's just so many guys that are so good that I've got to tangle with. Probably Samoa Joe. This is my favorite match, so he's probably my top dog opponent.
All right. And the flip side, who was your least?
Oh Jesus, man, there's a ton of those motherfuckers too. Some guys I've never even thought of. I'll do matches and just be like, "Yeah, man, you just need to go burn your fucking boots. You suck." I mean, I'm at the point now. I've been doing it 30 years, and everybody has their little list of guys they want to wrestle. I'm on like a lot of these guys' lists now, and they go out and we go out and we do our match. They're like, "That was the easiest match I've ever had." I go, "Well, no shit. I know what the fuck I'm doing." But as far as in like death matches, I wrestled this dude named Paul Hatchett, and it wasn't a death match. It was just a little shit show here in Chattanooga, and he just two left feet didn't know what the hell was going on. And he got to the point where I just started beating him so fucking bad. And instead of saying "take it home," he said "make it end." So that just pissed me off. So that just pissed me off even more. So I just threw him out of the ring again and beat his ass around
Oh,
the building
nice,
one more time. And
nice,
then I was like, yeah, he was one of the guys I told him, "Man, don't ever get in the ring again. You suck."
nice, nice. All right, and now for the name association parts. Madman Pondo,
Awesome.
Mean Mitch Page,
Even more awesome.
and
Love that dude.
how many times did you get to work with him?
Just one time in
Just
a
the one
fucking
time?
three-way. Unless was he in the War Games match?
No, no, he wasn't working at the time, or else I would have had him. But yeah, he wasn't doing shows at that point. So
yeah, we got to do that one three-way with brain damage, and like I said, it was a good time. Funny as hell, man. Like I know his wife and my wife hit it off well. Whenever she would come with me, they would always sneak off and just chit chat.
all righty. Bull Payne, you've talked a little bit about him, but
Bad
anything else you want
motherfucker.
to add?
Just bad motherfucker.
Okay. Toby Klein, I saw you guys were looked like you guys were on a show just like this past weekend or something, was it?
Oh no, that was back in September. That was an AEW deal that we got to do with Ring of Honor. Clusterfuck of a match, but it was cool to actually get to hang out with him because it'd been quite a few years, and I actually get to see him here next month here in Chattanooga. He's doing a show here. Great guy.
And you've mentioned him in passing a couple of times, but your manager, the Reverend.
Fucking best friend. He's he's my ride or die right now. We've decided to do this shit together, and once I quit for good, if it ever happens, I'm sure he'll find somebody else to go manage and do whatever if he wants to stick with it.
Okay. And no pressure at all on this one. But there's only one right answer. Who's your favorite retired manager that never managed you despite being on several shows together?
What's you?
Okay. You passed the test. Do you got anything that you want to hype? Any upcoming shows? Any merch that you got to sell?
Uh, well, no, just follow me on Facebook or whatever. It's under my real name, Warren Hollander. I'm on Twitter at tank underscore at 1996 or tank at underscore 1990. I don't know what the fuck it is. Just Google it. You'll find it. Strong Style Psycho on Instagram. And we got a show in Chattanooga called TWE that I work quite often. I do a lot of work for ICW, Danny DeMonto's promotion. Like I said, just still out there grinding, man, just doing what I do.
Now is that ICW? Is that the shows that I've been seeing lately where they got chains
Yes.
for ropes?
Yeah.
That looks actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it was that was one of my goals when I came back. I was like, I want to wrestle for them. And when I got booked for a show in Florida for Tony Depp, and somebody canceled off one of Danny's shows the next night, and he goes, "You gonna be available tomorrow?" I go, "Yeah." And I went out and I wrestled Neil Diamond Cutter, and we tore it up. And I've been booked for him ever since. That was 5 years ago.
Nice. Okay. And so you had mentioned your social medias. You like interacting with the fans on there, or want them to hunt you down?
Yeah. People, I get messages all the time about shit.
All right. Well, this wraps up another edition of Fannin's Flashbacks. I'd like to thank Tank for joining me today. Want you to remember to check out my YouTube channel at youtube.com/sportsfannin for IWA clips and matches and these podcasts. When you get to the YouTube channel, start by hitting subscribe, then look around and click like on some videos. Also, give the other podcasts in the BNMVS network a listen if you haven't already. Reed Bentley, Nick Manawa, and Mike Ruff have some great stuff on here to listen to. If you're interested in vintage IWA Mid-South t-shirts like the one I've got on, give my godson James Christopher a follow on Twitter at Candido24K_. And if you're looking to have some design work done for yourself, shoot James Christopher a DM. He did all of the t-shirts of mine that aren't available and some graphics for me. But you can follow me on Twitter at jfannin73, on Instagram at IWAFannin73. And as I've posted everywhere online, I'm now open for a farewell tour in 2026 before I turn 50 in November. I've got a bucket list of items that I didn't get to do before I left wrestling when I had my falling out with Ian. So I'm trying to cross a few of those off the list. I want to manage Mickey Knuckles. I want to manage John Wayne Murdoch and Reed Bentley. I'd say I want to manage Tank, but you've already got a manager. Would like to do commentary with Nick Manawa and maybe even one last time with Dave Prazak. So if you want to help me accomplish any of those goals on your show, you can email me at bookjimfannin@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Fannin's Flashbacks. So let it be written. So let it be done. Good day.